You're a mess. You're a mess. Okay, so first I want to let you know I did have something I wanted to tell you because I thought it was really funny that it came to my mind.
Is this recording?
We are recording.
So let me start the podcast first and then tell me the story. Have you had your daily drip? Welcome to the Daily Drip Podcast, where we create kingdom content that builds community. I am already laughing because one of my funniest friends.
Thank you, Adam. You heard that?
My friend is funny.
I'm funny.
And so it was hard for us to even get this started because she was making me laugh. So that's what the vibe that we was on. But man, I'm so honored.
No,
to have you on the podcast.
I'm very honored because I have two things now that I'm going to say because it's really funny.
Okay.
So the first thing I want to say is I love Daily Drip.
Thank you.
When it first came out and I started seeing it on my Instagram, I was like, who is it? Why am I getting Daily Drip all the time? I go, Erica, do you get this Daily Drip? And she looks at me and she goes, it's Aaron. She goes, I told you, Aaron, you need to put your name on it so people know who it is. And so I was busting up laughing. I was like, dang, now I feel bad. I don't really know my friend like that. And then, but no, that part. And then the other part, I'm honored because knowing you personally, you from the exterior, you seem very like you're a thought partner. You're a thought partner. Okay. You think, but you're goofy.
Yeah.
And I love that because it once you like get to know you, which is great because I think that's what we're going to talk about today too. But like understanding someone who they truly are. Yeah. And that's when you can open up to somebody. Yeah. Because you can't just unleash it all to somebody. No. You really can't. No. Yeah, that was my pitfall at the beginning of ministry. I was just like, let me share it all. Let me share everything about me because I want you to like me. I want you to get to know me. And God's like, there's some things about you that everyone's not going to agree with. Yeah. And I need to protect you in that way, so you have to be mindful. So, for sure. No, but I love that about you because thank you. I'm glad that I got to know you. I was allowed in.
Well, hey, the drip is time. Yes. Ecclesiastes 3. We've been in Ecclesiastes all this season. Episode 31. Let's lock in.
Let's do it.
Okay, starting from verse 1. For everything there is a season and a time for every matter under heaven. A time to be born and a time to die. A time to plant and a time to pluck up what is planted. A time to kill and a time to heal. A time to break down and a time to build up. A time to weep and a time to laugh. A time to mourn and a time to dance. A time to cast away stones, a time to gather stones together. A time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing. A time to seek, a time to lose. A time to keep, a time to cast away. A time to tear, a time to sow. A time to keep silent and a time to speak. A time to love and a time to hate. A time for war and a time for peace. A lot of time in there.
A lot of time. Yeah. A lot of time. And one of those things that had stuck out to me was reflecting on, and that was the time to sow, but then also, or time to plant and the time to pluck. Okay. With Ecclesiastes. So that was one of the things verse 2 that had stuck out to me, a time to plant and a time to pluck. Okay. Because then it brought me back to your daily drip. Okay. Wherein it says, where I have my phone, but it says in Proverbs 16:9, and it's talking about plan. And it says, the heart of a man plans his ways, but the Lord establishes his steps. Okay. So when I thought about that and I thought about how it applied to me, and looking at it at a way of, I honestly do not have a green thumb. So when I'm establishing that, I have to understand how God plans. Okay. And understanding that there's types of seasons. Okay. Where you're planting and then you're plucking. And I believe that that's what God does sometimes, that sometimes even with friendships, sometimes even with families, they're planted in certain seasons, but God is wanting to take you somewhere else. Yeah. That they have to be plucked. And you have to understand that has nothing to do with you, but it has everything to do with what God has established and a plan for your life, knowing he's going to take you somewhere far greater than someone else that you've planted. Yeah. So, I've dealt with that too within friendships where it's been hard because I've been through those seasons similar to yours where you've had someone planted and you're ride or died. We're rocking this thing out called life. We're doing this together, and something where the rubber hits the road and God's like, hey, that was for that season, but I need you to pluck them, and not in a negative
Yeah.
way, not in a
Yeah.
way that you still can't be cordial or in a friendship type of way, but there's at a boundaries. So that's what
Yeah.
I talked about, which I have to work on, and which I had to work on is setting those boundaries and understanding that God has established my life. And if I'm trusting him with my life, I have to understand there's going to be some times that it's going to be uncomfortable.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to do something.
Tell me.
This is the Daily Drip
Yes.
Proverbs book. Every day, if you haven't heard about this, every single day I use one word, kind of like what we're doing on the podcast, but I break down each word in Proverbs.
Yeah.
And you talked about the word plan.
Plan.
That just so happens to be the drip in the book.
Yeah.
So it's a little shameless plug. But I said here in the book, it is wise to ask God about your plans prior to sharing them with people.
Ooh, I love that.
So what I've learned, and I've learned by failure, because you're like, hey, when I really get to know you, you're goofy.
You're goofy. I love that.
I've had so much of unhealthy expectations of myself. And without having healthy boundaries, I try to fulfill expectations of everyone that's bringing them to me.
Right.
And the more that you're trying to fulfill everybody else's expectations, the more you're losing who you really are.
Right.
So I think with this time, I think that's a critical word to use for relationships.
Yeah.
Because you don't really know who has your back until time reveals that. Until failure reveals that, until sin reveals that, So it's not sin that plucks relationships. It's how we respond to sin. It's how we respond to correction. It's how we respond to those rebukes, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
And what I found is some people will pluck themselves,
Yeah,
which may hurt me for a season, but in time, because God's timing, it was best for me for where the Lord was taking me that I didn't know where I was headed.
Right.
Yeah.
And one thing that you were saying is normally when you have a plan or you, let's just say you're making something in the kitchen and you have a plan, and my plan is to make lasagna.
Okay.
You're starting out and you have all these ingredients that you have to do in order to get the lasagna.
Now, is your lasagna really fire, or are you just taking this
Oh,
on the
I'm
preaching?
just taking the preaching aspect
this is-
of it. Yeah, no. There is no lasagna being made in my household. We go to Pinwheel Pasta on DoorDash, and I will order lasagna from there. Which still takes time. So you gotta get to that point.
Remember, I was trying to save time. I want to hear your story, but you know what came to mind? When Erica goes out of town.
Oh, tell me.
And I put in our group chat the picture of the lasagna.
Yes.
And I got rebuked by all of my friends. What are you feeding your kids?
I didn't say nothing. I was silent. I was like, that is the man of the house. He's feeding his children. I hope he has the Texas toast on the side.
I was trying to save time. That was that Stouffer's.
Absolutely. And you were, especially if you got that Texas toast that's bomb.
Yes.
Yeah. That is a gourmet meal.
Take me back to that lasagna language.
But I was just talking about like the same way that you talk about it's time. You have all this preparation. When you have a plan set in place, it still takes time for that plan to be executed or for the plan to actually come into fruition. You still have to cut the onion, you still have to dice the tomatoes, you still have to cook the pasta. So I think that sometimes everyone's so quick to get to the execution, they don't realize that there's avenues that they must take. There's lessons that they must learn. Just like in Ecclesiastes, there is so many, a time to heal, or a time to kill, a time to heal, a time to, what was it?
Time to love and
yes,
a time to hate, yo.
That's wild. That's wild.
So yesterday, Erica is cooking. Trinity wants to learn how to cook. So when you're talking about all these different things and it takes time for it to happen, Trinity don't have all that time.
No.
She wants to get back to the iPad.
Yes.
So I want to start with helping, but I'm not taking the time to stay long enough to get the reward.
Right.
So when I'm thinking about here when it says a time to love and a time to hate, that was the hardest one for me. Because it's like, okay, it's in the Bible, but it's like, do I really have a green light to just start hating people? I'm tempted to. I mean,
because also in the Bible it says you can be angry, but you cannot sin. So can I hate but not sin? where but because the hate is a strong word, so am I sinning in the hate?
What I concluded from this.
Give me wisdom, Pastor Aaron, because there's time where I'll be like, you know what, I just can't stand this person.
So
and this is how I feel.
Proverbs chapter 6, since we're in that Proverbs vibe, and since I did go to Proverbs 6 if you want to do that, you know what I mean? But in Proverbs 6, God talks about the things he hates. The majority of them have to do with our tongue. So the reason why God hates that is because he values relationships so much. Right. And when you have a relationship for a long period of time, you can't avoid conflict. You can't avoid hurt. You can't avoid misunderstanding. And a lot of times, character gets exposed in those hard times where people start lying, people start gossiping, people start being divisive. And in Proverbs 6, God says, I hate those things. Why does God hate those things? Because he loves relationship.
Right,
He's Father, Son, Holy Spirit, perfect relationship. There's the beauty of great friendships that can endure those hard times. But if people choose to start lying and gossiping and backbiting in those hard times, that's where it's a time to hate. Not that I hate the person, but I hate that action. So if I come and confront you based upon that action, there is forgiveness, but reconciliation depends on how you respond to that correction.
100%.
And that's where it may be a time to plant, but a time to pluck, because you may get plucked because I hate what you did. I don't hate you. I hate what you did because I'm agreeing with God. Now, if you repent, you change, but long suffering. But if not, boundary says I gotta love me and I gotta love you at the same time. So I'm a back.
Absolutely. And that's so good, because when you're saying that because out of the abundance of the heart the mouth speaks. So.
Yes.
So whenever those things that are happening within Ecclesiastes, I really believe that God is checking your heart within it, because although the latter may be hard, because to plant and then to pluck. What was it? To kill and to heal.
To dance and to mourn.
To dance and
yeah.
Those are things where I feel like God is checking your heart to say, although that there's the good and then there's the bad, but that also brings me back to the trials that we face.
Yeah.
We're never going to have an easy road. We're going to have highs and we're going to have lows. And I believe that God is checking your heart saying, how are you going to deal with this?
Yes.
Because even when you're talking about the dance to mourn, there are many of times I've lost my father in 2020, and thinking about him, I mourn, I grieve, and I have grief. There are times where I'm very sad, but then there's times and moments where I can laugh because I see a lot of my dad in me.
Yeah.
And God, he doesn't want me to sit in the grief, because like you said, God is a loving God. And God, I would assume, hates that we mourn. He hates that for us. He hates the grief that we feel, but he's going to say, but I love you that much. How are you going to turn and change your perspective to say, you know where your father is?
Yeah.
I'm blessed to know that my father is in heaven. But for me, I had to recognize I can sit in the morning in the grief, or I can be in the praise and the dance, knowing my God, my dad is heel, hold, and with our Father. So there are certain things where I feel when it comes to that with anything that comes out of your mouth, you have to be mindful of what you say and how you say it, and make sure that if it isn't coming from a place of love, take time to reflect, pull yourself back. And say, you know what, I want to revisit this with you because I have to process. One thing I love about you, you are a processor. You process before you speak. Me, I'm going to say what I'm going to say, and then I'm going to say sorry for what I said after I said it, because I probably said it wrong or it didn't come out right. So that's me. But it's coming.
That's why earlier, sis, when I said a time to keep silence and a time to speak,
you heard me say,
you got really Pentecostal.
Man, that was for me.
You know, to conclude, because we could do this all day, but this is a drip. This is not a pour. This is a drip. But one of my favorite verses is, rejoice with those who rejoice. Weep with those who weep. So here's how we're going to practice this week. Take time to process your thoughts. Take time to process your emotions. You don't always have to say something. You don't always have to have the last word. You don't always have. You can just be with a person.
Right.
My sister and I have been family for long enough that we've been to funerals together and weddings
Yeah,
together.
yeah.
We've been with each other, and not everything needs a nugget, a response, or something.
Right.
No, I just remember who was there with me.
That's good.
No matter all these times in my life that are good and bad, I'm going to recount not what you said,
Right.
but who was with
With
me.
me. Yeah, that's
Any
so
other
good.
any other things that you want to share before we close?
No, I just think that that part is really, really good. Is that you don't always have to say something, because I even learned that what you were talking about and just talking about grieving, and we talked about it many a times too within our women's ministry. Sometimes if you have a friend that may have lost somebody or is going through a tough time, just being with them is just enough.
Yeah.
You don't have to say something profound or prophetic that you need your friend to be like, that's what I needed. Most of the time, they just need a hug.
Yeah.
They need a coffee date. They need
Yeah.
their mind taken off of that situation
Yeah.
and knowing that they have a friend to do that with.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, that's the
that's
drip.
good.
That's how we're going to practice. No matter what time of life you're facing,
Yeah.
let's have healthy relationships to be with each other. Well,
So
thank
good.
you, sis,
Well,
for
thank
being
you.
on.
That's your rip.
We're going to close this episode by saying, stay dripping, my... Hey, we're going to close this episode by saying, stay dripping, my friends. No, you're going to say it with me.
No, stay dripping, my friends.
Okay, there you go. There you go. We done.